it's very reasonable to come to the conclusion that the healthier you are, the more resources you have control over. And I'm not going to cite any specific studies or research or claims. You can do this for yourself. One of the reasons is I'm driving and I do a lot of my recordings as stream of consciousness based on different types of inspiration that I get in talking about these and discussing these topics. But so today, one of the biggest issues people are facing is there are a lot of people who are really struggling to earn money, and the money that they earn to hold on to it in any significant way to be able to make investments, buy a home, buy a car, even rent an apartment or anything like that to raise a family. It's become increasingly more difficult for a lot of people. And one of the fundamental practices, something that I have been fortunate to stumble upon in a way, but it's not really stumbling upon, but what I'm realizing is that it actually has benefits way beyond what I originally thought they were. So I began practicing healthy living and self-defense habits very long ago. Most seriously, I can link it to when I was 15 years old and I started practicing capoeira when I first learned about it, but I had already been practicing martial arts. But I really wasn't so locked into the whole healthy living part, and also didn't realize that healthy living is in itself a huge part of self-defense itself. And I also know that a lot of people who teach self-defense mostly limit it to the physical practices of the body as a weapon and other weapons as extensions of the body. And so, but I know that a lot of it stemmed from this, and it's almost insatiable, or seems like insatiable, curiosity. I remember, sometimes one of my older brother, when I remember being in New York City and sitting at the breakfast table and eating cereal, and I would turn the box to the side panel and start reading the ingredients and the other stuff on there, and he would poke fun at me and say things like, "Why are you reading the side of the cereal box?" Or when we'd be out with our parents or driving around, and why are you always reading the signs? And my thought was always, well, there are words there. Somebody wrote and printed or painted or put words on there. Isn't that what words are for, to be read? And so that was, one of my earliest memories that I have of being like 4 or 5 years old and just reading things. And also it's another thing that I was able to read a lot when I was that young. But that curiosity, and then those memories of somewhat being, a little bit ridiculed or bothered because I wanted to read things. But it's those seeds that were planted somehow that kept me curious about so many various different things, which would later turn out that reading the labels on various different foods or products that I'm using, whether they be lotions, deodorants, for everything, the food that you eat. And so this became very important. And it still is to this day. It's a very fundamental thing, but it's one of the most powerful things that I have maintained throughout my life. And as I was saying earlier, you are able to control a lot more of your resources, specifically finances, money, when you are healthier. There are various different what are known as corporate wellness programs. So for example, there was a company in California that a friend turned me on to. We had met during kickboxing classes in a gym, and I started working. I was working out, and I was a member of and a trainer at the gym. And my friend Erin, she also went on eventually herself to become a yoga teacher, and she had recommended that me to sub or fill in for the corporate wellness program for, now the company's name is escaping me, it might come to me later, but I would then go and teach their lunch fitness program. And so I would do body sculpting, and I would do a combination of yoga and various different dumbbell and weight routines with a little bit of Pilates thrown in there and some martial arts. So I had my own system that I was teaching. And different companies would also give incentives to employees for them to do that, because what they realized was that the employees who participated in these programs requested less time off for sick days. These employees were more productive. It fostered a sense of camaraderie and community amongst the employees. The employees actually got on. They worked better as a team. There's so many various different benefits, and I know that you can go online or even ask AI and research and find out that in fact those are just some of the benefits of wellness, corporate wellness programs specifically. And so this extends to your life in general. When you are healthier overall, you tend to have more energy, more vitality, you're not sick less, you can be more productive, and on and on and on. The benefits are endless, or seemingly endless, just like my appetite for information seems to be endless, and just my vigor and vitality and just my enthusiasm for life and the ambition that I have, how it doesn't go away. Even though there are a lot of challenges, I'm facing the same challenges that everybody else does. It's challenging to try to build a business, to do gig work, to try to have a job, to do all of these different things, and then to have enough money to invest, to create, to do other things. But it's worth it to me, because the payoff is that I have the energy to do these things. I work probably 16 to 18 hours a day sometimes, and then get up and do it all over again. And it's amazing the energy that I have. Like for example, I don't have any days, and there's been times when this has happened to me, but now I don't remember ever the last time when I would be driving throughout the day and I had to take a nap, or I was falling asleep behind the wheel, or had to pull over or do anything. It's happened on long trips. Like I've driven out to California in the past couple of years, and down to Florida and back, and up across the East Coast and things like that. And just because of the fact that I was just staying up, and I'm kind of a extremist when it comes to driving and road trips. I just keep going and going and going. I remember once when Floor and we drove from Florida to California in a 2017 Hyundai Elantra that we bought brand new in 2017, that I drove almost the whole way there. It took us probably just about 24 hours. I remember what was interesting, we left at 4 p.m. on in Eastern Standard Time, and arrived in California the next day at 6 p.m. So it was probably something like almost 30 hours that it took. But and check this out though, I stopped and I slept for about 7 hours. So even though the clock rolls back a little bit, 3 hours, still it was pretty incredible how we left around 4 in the afternoon or early evening and got there at around 6 p.m. the next calendar day. I remember it was July 4th, and we got there on July 5th at 6 p.m. or something like that. So it's pretty ridiculous. I do have a video that I recorded, I put on YouTube, and I'm glad. I miss Floor very much, that now that she's no longer here with me or alive on this earth. But I'm glad that I have that video of us arriving in Chinatown in Los Angeles. But it was, my point is that that's like one of the only times that I get really tired of just going throughout my day, even though sometimes I get really manic and I'll start jumping and flipping and kicking and spinning around for like 2 or 3 hours straight, only stopping to rest for about a minute to recover my heart rate and to drink some water and stuff like that, and then I just go again. And it's a pretty incredible feeling to have that much control and vitality. And the fact that there are so many things that I don't do, and that's actually one of the major points about healthy living and self-defense that I have been talking about a lot, is that oftentimes it doesn't require adding anything. A lot of people, they work out and they do all these things and they feel like they have to add supplements and add vitamins or go and take hormones and add like injections and do all these different things that they feel like they have to add, when for me, the major thing has been elimination, just not putting things in my body. So eating organic foods, eating things with the least amount of ingredients in it, eating raw foods. You know, if I get chicken, it's baked chicken with like only a few herbs and spices, not a whole bunch of other stuff added to it. Or if I get to go to Whole Foods or other places that have organic chickens, I'll get those, or just the organic varieties of a lot of things. And what I find is that even though they tend sometimes to be more expensive, not always, depends on what you get, my body requires less of it. Maybe it's because the foods are more nutrient dense, as some proponents of organic foods and natural foods claim, because maybe there may not be competing issues in your body with molecules and enzymes that have to fight to break down certain things, which actually costs energy to your body. So the feelings of satisfaction that I'm having with less. There's also the fact that I don't have cravings and addictions because I'm not putting all kinds of extra added sugars and things in my body. So there's a variety of different reasons why I'm satisfied and have more energy with less. I also am completely straight edge now. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't vape. I don't there's no cannabis. I don't even take over-the-counter medications. I don't take over-the-counter medications for allergies, for pain medication, like nothing like that at all. I don't take cough syrups or anything like that. Everything is completely 100% as natural and free of any kind of toxins as possible. And that's how I maintain and live my life. And the whole point being that less toxins and less additives equals more vitality. And that's how I operate. That's the simplest, equation for my practice of healthy living and self-defense. And what I do with that more vitality is I just get out and about and move more. And so the combination of healthy, efficient, effective, and safe movements combined with putting in the highest quality fuel is what is the combination that contributes to my seemingly endless vitality. And there's so many things, so many analogies I can make with this. Like, for example, if there's a high performance vehicle, maybe a Lamborghini or something like that, these things require a certain octane of fuel, right? So the higher octane or performance or racing fuels, right? And so that if you were to put in like these lower octane fuels, like this 70 and 80, whatever octanes that go in regular cars in a gas station, it won't perform as well, and in some cases might actually even damage the engine. And you can think of your body in a very similar way. I'm not claiming the body is necessarily an engine like that, or is it, Shalom.
Hey, how are you?
Excellent. How are you doing? Is this 2756 here?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I got something for you guys here. All right, well, hold on for a second here. I'm going to get back on track. And, okay, so I'm not saying that the body is necessarily an engine, although, it's fuel for our, neuromotor processes. Basically, we need fuel to move, right, and to live. And I've been criticized before about comparing the brain and the nervous system to a computer. But there are a lot of striking similarities between the whole software and hardware analogies. And and they're good analogies to operate from, right? And so the whole point being, and we've heard the sayings before too, right? You are what you eat. I mean, this is such fundamental wisdom that a lot of times people overlook the simplest things, and it just becomes something that they say on rote, just automatically, but without understanding the profound wisdom that really lies within that understanding and actually putting it into practice. That the simplest things, and like I've been saying over and over again, it's more about what you don't do than sometimes what you do. Like, for example, even with intense exercise, like a lot of people think that, okay, in order to reduce my body weight, if they feel like they have too much body fat, is I got to do more exercise. Sometimes it's just a little bit less food, and sometimes it's less activity in general, letting your body rest. Sleeping a little bit more, which some people might say is doing nothing. In a way, yeah, it is. You're not doing activity. So it's maybe sometimes less activity, less staying awake, less binge watching TV at night, because your body does a lot of healing work when you are resting, when you are sleeping. And so that type of vitality, it can be maintained and upheld by resting more. And when we know these things, they're very fundamental, and it's a lot of universal knowledge. But my goal and my mission here is to continue to remind people of these things. You may have heard sayings. I learned a lot of this when I was a student at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, HMI, in Tarzana, California. And, you know, our scope of practice is vocational and avocational motivation and self-improvement. And, you know, we're professional belief system enhancers that help people to make incremental changes moving towards the results that they desire using the various methods of clinical hypnosis. And something that I learned from what I call a subset of hypnosis, which is known as neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, is that we become the sum total of the 5 to 7 people that we spend our time with. And so I put out a lot of information over and over again for people to listen, to continue to be inspired, to be reminded. I say a lot of the same things in various different ways and at various different times, and sometimes I say the same things, but I say it at a different time, and there's a different background going on. Like right now, there's various different things that happen during this recording while I'm driving and delivering and doing things like that, and so it gives it a different experience. And for various different people, whenever they come across this information, it's going to hit them at a different time that's just right. And this is what I understand as a person who operates as a clinical hypnotist, and has developed my practice to what it is now, the written and spoken word, because I know from neuro-linguistic programming, from what is known as conversational hypnosis and sometimes was known as covert hypnosis, and which happens a lot of times subliminally and with advertising and other surreptitious forms of influence. I've realized that, and I've created an acronym for this, PITCH, that programming, influencing, training, conditioning, and hypnosis are synonymous in so many different ways. And there's physical control of the mind just as much as there's mental control of the body. And so I developed another acronym. I love acronyms. I use them so much. They are also part of this programming, influencing, training, conditioning, and hypnosis that I am disseminating across the world with my various different types of recordings and other multimedia offerings, is called PACTS, PACTS, Personally Attuned Conversational Transformation Sessions. So I'm talking to you, and when I meet with people one-on-one and I have conversations, that is my goal. I'm consistently always being aware of what I'm saying and how I'm saying it, so because I know that it's going to influence or impact people in some way, shape, or form. And sometimes I actually am not very nice about it either, meaning sometimes I actually don't have the intention to be nice to people. Sometimes I don't feel like being nice to people. Sometimes people around me, I feel like they need to be smacked in the head, and so sometimes silence is some of the best thing, or just speaking in a certain way. You know, I'm not claiming that you have to be a good guy all the time, and not everybody's going to think that you're a good person all the time. But what I do know is that I operate from this premise that I engage only in transactions that benefit all whom it affects, while obeying the laws of mutual exchange as much as I can possibly manage. And that's all that we can do as human beings, is just strive to do the best that we can, knowing that the better that you are, the better that the world is going to be, because you are part of the world. And so if you are not a burden on the world, and if you can do your best to be an asset in the world in as many ways possible, contribute by making yourself a better person in every way, shape, or form, then the world becomes better that way. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be complicated. People say they want to change the world for the better, and I believe that the saying was contributed or attributed to Gandhi that says, be the change that you want to see in the world. And whatever that might be for you, I do hope and wish that, and I am also suggesting that it is something that is based upon this understanding that by being the best version of yourself, you are part of the world, and therefore the world is better by you being in it. And so these messages, this is all part of all of the things that I've been doing, and all of my various different concepts and handles and brands and things like that, they're all really the same thing. They converge around this idea that started to develop more acutely and more specifically, more intentionally, is really what I'm saying here. What's been developed more intentionally is around this idea of hypnoathletics is exercising your mind towards universal harmony and spiritual wisdom through healthy living and self-defense. And that is the core of this idea. And again, elimination is one of the keys. Eliminations of the toxins, eliminations of the destructive thinking, elimination of the negative talk to yourself and to others. And by doing that, sometimes you just take what works for you. You don't need to discard anything because you're not making time or space for anything that might be toxic or harmful. And simply by focusing on those things that are healthy and beneficial, you're doing pretty much all that you need to be doing with that very simple focus. And so, again, back to the opening, idea that I started with that inspired me to begin this particular recording, is that you can have more command of your resources in various different ways, being your time and your energy, because you're more efficient when you focus on healthy living and self-defense, from this understanding that healthy living also is a form of self-defense. Because once again, if we just focus on being more efficient saves time and money. You use less energy to get the same amount of work done. And so therefore, if you want to maintain a certain amount of output, the more efficient you become, the less and less energy is required for you to do that, and the less and less time is required for you to do certain things, so that you can free up time to do more things, to enjoy other things in your life. This is something that I've been striving for, that I've been working towards perfecting, working towards mastering, which, there's never an end to it. I will never be perfect, and I will never really master anything, if I might say so myself. At least that's for me. But this continual journey, this shooting for the stars, knowing that at least shooting for the moon, knowing that at least I'll land amongst the stars, that's the idea that I'm working from. That's the mode of operation that is getting these kind of results. And it's quite necessary. It's needed because life is difficult. Working on building businesses, working on managing finances, all of these different things are challenging, sometimes perilous, sometimes discouraging, and they require, sometimes I gotta psych myself up. This morning I wanted to just go back to sleep for a little bit because I was having some really great lucid dreams. But then I thought about, I have certain objectives and certain goals and certain things that I want to do, and making these recordings and sharing them with the world is one of them. And so I took my deep breaths that I do in the morning as I kept on moving and getting up and moving about, and communicated with the people I need to communicate, and just I'm on mission and on point. And so that's what it is. And I have my Capoeira team here in Virginia Beach that I'm building up. And so this is where, if in person you want to get some of this this training, get some of this action, get in on the play, because I'm operating Capoeira team as sort of like how people do basketball pickup games. There's no hierarchy like teacher, student, master, and disciple. It's all just, hey, I have these things that I do, I'm going to share them with you, and we're going to play this game, and we're going to grow and build together and create a team. We're partners in this team, we're teammates. So this whole subordinate, master, student, all this type of stuff is eliminated. Where we are in this game of mutually edifying and building each other up and learning from each other, and that is the type of environment that I've been operating from, and it works out for me and works out for other people, because we're here learning together and building together, and there's no need for belts and titles or anything like that. Just the only labels we have are what we're doing. We're practicing healthy living and self-defense. And again, like I said, It stemmed from this when I started becoming a lot more intentional with 20 years ago with hypnoathletics, and making that statement that hypnoathletics is exercising your mind towards universal harmony and spiritual wisdom through healthy living and self-defense. I am Hakeem Ali Bocas Alexander.